again, everybody, and welcome to Oh So Sweet. I'm delighted to have you back. What I want to do is kind of go through a few basics. As I promised, what we're going to do is we're going to start right at the beginning, and we're going to go through some of the basic equipment first, and then talk about the machine itself, how it operates, how to kind of thread the machine, how to wind a bobbin. So first of all, I want to kind of share a few bits of equipment that I use, the do's and don'ts of kind of things like thread, scissors, that kind of thing. So we'll make a start. So the first thing you need is a very good pair of fabric scissors. I use this particular one. This is by a company called Fiskars. Fiskars are a very reputable brand. They've been operating for years. The quality of their products is absolutely outstanding. And obviously when you first get these out of the packaging, they will be super sharp, so be careful. They are very, very sharp. To maintain them, you can get yourself a little sharpener just to keep them trim. What I will say is, please keep your fabric scissors for cutting fabric only. Try to limit the use with other items, because if you start cutting things like cardboard and paper and things like that, you will kind of wear down those scissors a lot quicker. I certainly don't let anybody use my scissors for anything else. I will hide these out of sight because I don't want them being used on anything else but fabric. So, you know, if you maintain them, look after them, you will get a lot of longevity out of these. So like I said, Fiskars, really good brand. There's so many amazing brands out there. But again, keep your fabric scissors for fabric only. Moving on to thread, using a really, really good quality thread is very, very important for your projects. You will notice that there are many different kinds of threads available on the market. A good 100% polyester thread is the best way to go. Just to start off with, you'll notice that it is a lot stronger. Again, you'll get a lot more out of those threads. Some of the threads that I use are Coats Moon, or moon threads as they're referred to, and another very popular one is Gutterman. Gutterman threads are also very popular and a well-known brand. They will rarely snap when you're working on your project, so you'll find yourself having to rethread your machine a lot less. They are very, very good quality threads. In the long run, they're better for your machine. You will find cheaper threads tend to kind of give off a lot more lint, and what happens there is that the lint kind of goes into your machine, it gathers under the presser foot. So what you'll find is, if you're using a cheaper thread, you will have to clean your machine out a lot more regularly, and you'll find that a lot more lint is gathering. When you get a gathering of lint, that is when you get issues with your tension, things start going wrong, the machine starts misbehaving. So I always say, if you use a good quality thread, your machine will behave and your projects will last longer. Another very, very important tool is a seam ripper. So I always avoid anybody who sat there with a seam ripper, because I know that person's not in a good mood right now. You will use a seam ripper if something's gone wrong, you've accidentally stitched over something, you're thinking, oh my lord, what have I done here? So, you know, this is literally to get those little stitches out. Be careful with these. Again, you know, be very, very kind of delicate with your projects, because the last thing you want to do is use a seam ripper, you know, quite boisterously and then ruin your project. There is actually like a very sort of thin blade that runs between the two prongs, so that can act as obviously a little bit of a slicer tool, so be careful. Don't ruin your projects, just be very careful with it, even though you'll be pretty frustrated while using one of these. What you also might need are some pins and a pin cushion. Obviously many of you have subscribed, so, you know, email me, I will send you out the PDF pattern for the pin cushion. I'll just show you that. There we go, we've still got the pin cushion. So, I mean, it's good to have something to sort of pop your pins in. Not everybody uses pins, some people use clips as well. I'll show you some of those. So these are the alternatives. These are little clips that can also hold your projects together. With myself, it depends on what I'm working with. Sometimes the clips don't work very well and I need to use a pin to really get in there. And sometimes it's a case of you know, the pins can be a little bit annoying and a bit fiddly, and the clips will do the trick. So again, it's down to personal preference, and it also depends on the project that you're working on. Another thing to consider are needles. Now, you may find when you work with different fabrics, you might have to swap your needle over. Your machine will come with a standard needle, which can be used on many different fabrics. However, if you're working with something like stretch fabrics or jersey fabrics, you might need to actually get a needle that will manage to get through the stretch fabrics. If you're doing top stitching as well, you may need something that is super sharp and quite long, and you might need to kind of just switch over to that as well. So we will be looking a little bit more into needles and the suitability based on the fabrics in my upcoming video, so do look out for those as well. Okay folks, so let's get started. Let's have a look at the machine. Let's look at how we thread our sewing machines. Okay, so here we are. We're going to be using the Singer Confidence machine. So that's the machine that I'm using. Now, depending on your machine, there will be instructions on the top based on how to kind of thread your machine. Now, if you don't have any numbers such as these on your machine, do refer to your sewing manual. That will give you clear instructions on how to actually thread your machine up. So not every machine will have this. Just check your manual and hopefully that will give you the clear instructions. So first things first, we've got our thread here. So this is the Gutterman thread that I was talking about earlier on. So I'm just going to use a peach colour just to kind of give you clarity. So hopefully we'll see that against the background. So I've used the kind of spool holder that's over here. There sometimes is an additional spool holder that will be horizontal. So based on the kind of bobbin that you're using, the spool thread even, that you're using, it just depends which way works better. Not every spool will work here. Sometimes you'll notice if they are quite small or perhaps a little bit shorter, they tend to fall off the horizontal one and you might want to put them onto the vertical one. So again, it just depends on personal preference. So I'm going to pop this one on the horizontal one. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the thread just under the little kind of hook that's over here. So that will keep the thread from sort of falling off the holder. We've also got another little loop at the back. So I'm following the instructions. There's a number 1 there, so I know I've got to hook it under this loop here. I'm going to bring it down. And there's a number 2 here that's saying bring the thread downwards. So I'll bring that down now, and I'll just give you another little close-up on what I do next. Okay, so I'm bringing this thread down. It's asking me to loop it back round up here. So I'm going to take it around underneath this piece of plastic, bring it up, and then we're on to the next number. So we're at the top here. Number 4 is asking me to go around this loop. Now, you might want to use the wheel at the side just to bring the little loop up. So if I'm twisting the wheel, you can just about see the movement of that silver hook that's in there. And what we need to do is we need to thread it underneath that hook. So make sure it's actually hooked around. And then we're going back down again. Okay. So now we've reached the bottom stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hook it around this little spring-loaded area here. So what that's going to do is going to kind of control that thread and also control the tension as well. So I'm just going to hook it around there. Now, many machines come with a little automatic threader. So this is actually the first machine that I've owned that's got an automatic threader. I didn't use it at first, but I've kind of gotten used to it. And I think once you get used to it, it's a habit for life. I can't do without it now. So I do tend to use this quite a lot. And it's basically just a little clip that goes down and pushes forward. Now, in between these 2 silver prongs that you can see, there is actually a very, very fine hook. and that hook goes through the center of the needle. So I've got into the habit of just threading that just through there, through that loop. And as soon as I sort of give it a little bit of tension there, what's happened is the thread is actually hooked onto the loop. When I let go, there is actually a little loop that has been pulled through. So it does make life easier. If you're happy to do it manually, that's absolutely fine. I've actually got into a habit now of wanting to do it with the little threader, and I've gotten pretty quick at it now. So I do appreciate little things like that that make life easy. So we've threaded the needle and obviously just tuck it through underneath the presser foot and give it a little pull, and then you can leave that be. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is how to thread your bobbin. Okay, so we're going to have a look at where the actual bobbin goes now. So depending on your machine, it might be from the top, it might be from the side. Now my specific machine is threaded via the top section here. There's a little lever that I can just click, and that little kind of piece of plastic will pop up like that and allow me access to the bobbin holder. Now this is the area where you will get a lot of lint gathering. As the needle's pressing through, it will sort of build a lot of friction. There will be lots of lint that gathers inside, and this is the part that you need to clean regularly. So please do keep that clean, use a brush before your projects, and that way you won't get any kind of issues with things like tension. You won't get any sort of, big lumps that are causing problems to your stitching projects. So the bobbin itself will go inside here. Now I've got a little hook there, a little loop, and there's also a picture, a little diagram on the side that shows me how to kind of thread that. So it wants the thread going in this direction, as according to the image. It loops underneath that hook, and then I'm actually putting it through the plate itself. There's a little groove in the plate that it's asking me to pop it through and bring out. So there we go, that is the bobbin that's been threaded inside. So if I pull that, that should quite easily move. So to bring that through, the next step would be obviously close that up so that we protect any dust from getting in there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring that thread through now. I'm holding the needle taut, I'm using the handle at the side to push that needle in, and what it's doing is it's wrapped it around the thread that's underneath and it's bringing it through. Okay, so I'm just going to use my pair of scissors here just to slide that under, and what that does is it just sort of brings those threads, or that specific thread, from the bobbin underneath. So rather than coming out the side, it's now coming out from below the press foot. Now that doesn't mean that you can't start a project with the bobbin thread underneath. You can just start straight away. I think by habit and using previous machines, I've always just preferred to bring it through, have it at the back, have quite a little bit of thread there, and then I'm quite happy to kind of feed the material through and make a start. So I've got a little piece of fabric here. I'm going to use the foot at the side. So there's a little lever just underneath. I've just pressed that down. You can bring that up. That will control your presser foot. Once the foot is down, you can press your pedal. And depending on how hard you press, that will control the speed of your machine. Okay, so we've done a little bit of threading there. I'm just going to pull that across and just chop that there. So again, we've managed to do a little bit of stitching just across there on a piece of cotton. The next step is, how do we get thread onto an empty bobbin? So obviously these bobbins do run out very, very quickly. There's always a game of roulette at the end of the project to see if you can last those extra few stitches. Normally sod's law is always against you and you will run out. So to actually pop some more thread back onto your bobbin, it is a simple case of popping it onto this little sort of contraption over here. Now again, it might vary a little bit, might look a little bit different on your machine, and it's just a case of popping that bobbin on there and making sure that you're taking it out of the sewing mode before you press that foot pedal. I just click mine to the right like that. What will happen is when I press when I press the foot pedal now, what will happen is it will stop the needle from going up and down. Now, we need to get the thread across there as well. So what I tend to do is, I'm just gonna unthread that from there. I will bring the thread around, just gonna quickly wrap this back up, okay? And I'm just bringing it around this little screw thing over here. That just really acts like a little bit of a pivot, and it just helps control the actual spool. So I'm bringing it round and I'm just threading it through like that. Make sure you have the direction correct as well. Okay, so I'm out of the sewing mode. I've got a little bit of thread wrapped around with a little bit of tension. I can now press the presser foot. So I'm just pressing the presser foot. And I'm just sort of holding it as well. You can hold it, you can guide it. Generally, if you go at a slow pace, it will generally work quite well and it'll thread it evenly. Don't be tempted to go too fast. There might be a little contraption here, like a little piece of plastic, that will kind of help you stop as well, so that you're not over threading it. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the amount that I have on there. I'm going to click it back into sewing mode and just chop that there. And there we go, I've got a little bit of thread on my bobbin. Okay folks, so that sums up today's video. So we've had a quick look at the machine, we've had a quick look at how to thread it, how to use different needles, how to wind the bobbin up and insert the bobbin. And what we'll do next time is we'll have a closer look at stitches. So every machine is a little bit different. You will have a stitch library or a picture of stitches on the side of your machine perhaps, or perhaps inside your manual or user book. We'll have a look at those stitches in more depth in the next video and see how we can use different stitches for different projects. So meet me back next time. I will see you very, very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to Oh So Sweet.